Okay, so I was just sharing. Do you want to repeat that, Julio? I couldn't quite hear you.
I think he was just saying that when you lost host, it was passed to him, and then he passed it back to you. So that's what happened.
Oh, I see. Thank you. Okay, you guys can see my screen, right? So what does this mean? The template app creates a sample test. Okay, I don't think we need to do this. This is just putting some output. Okay, so let's try hcdiv test. It should be testing hello world. It failed. It's not good. Okay, so it failed with error getting zome, unknown zome. Okay. I have no idea what to do about this error. Do any of you? Let's see. Error getting zone. Maybe we need to be in the test directory. Okay, so that didn't work. I do it here. Same error. Maybe, why would it be an unknown zone? It's right here. It's known.
Anders, are you sure you are on the right branch?
I don't know. I switched to master for downloading Holochain core. I didn't make. Maybe I need to make again. I bet that's what I did wrong, actually. It's one thing I did wrong. So let's go to...
I remember to be on the develop branch, not on the master branch.
Oh, I should be on the develop branch.
I did some tests.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll go to
on the development panel.
The develop branch. Okay, so we're back in Holochain. Let's do this right. So I will get, was it branch? And it's called developer. That worked. Okay, get pull.
I think it's called develop without the ER.
Thank you. Okay, it says it's up to date. And then I think make, just make, right? So this will make a new version of Holochain.
I'm not sure if you had to do git fetch before changing after you change branch.
You think I should do a go get fetch as well?
Yeah, it's like a git fetch to fetch the branch header, but I'm not. I need to remember this. I'll double check here now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so it remade Holochain. Let's try this again. Okay. Oh, this is weird. Okay, so it says there's no DNA file. So I think I didn't initialize it right. So let's try this again. Initialize empty application to home, holochain, hello world, hello world. That doesn't seem right. I think because it was just looking for dot holochain, but it just says it initialized it where I am, which is ludicrous. Yeah, see, it just made another hello world directory under this one, which is dumb. So I'm just going to delete that. Yes, okay. So this time, let's go to the holochain invisible directory, where it's expecting this to exist. And hcdev init hello world. I don't know how it's going to find hello world, but apparently it can. And now we can try hcdev test. Oops. Ah, it still is failing. So, but at least it's not saying the other error that the DNA doesn't exist. Yeah, it says the DNA is here, right? There's a sample zone, sample entry. Yeah, this seems like it should all be right. I don't know why the test is failing. So I guess let's look at the code. Here's the test. Here, there are two tests. Oh, this is not one of the tests that is specific to Hello World. It's a test in Holochain. Let's look at Holochain core and search for this error string and see if we can find the error. This is why I don't program that much. Just bugs and bugs and bugs all the way down. Okay. Open, vendors, go, source, GitHub, recurrency, holochain. Okay. Now, I'll search in the entire project. Error getting zone.
Hi, Anders.
Hi.
I typed in the chat the hcdev init commands that I think you should use. You should use the option clone example. So they need to go clone from GitHub the hello world example, I believe.
Cool. Okay, yeah, let me look at the chat. Hang on. Oh, yeah, that's not in this guide. Okay.
Yeah, it was in the Holo chat guide, so I took that for an example.
I see. Cool. So let me just let's see. Let me delete. Delete the Hello World directory. Delete this other Hello World directory, so we don't have duplicates floating around. Yeah, and then I think here, there, it should clone. There, it cloned. Cool. So we've got a fresh clone using the correct command, and it should have initialized it maybe. So maybe now hcdev test will just work. It worked. Awesome. Thank you so much, Julio.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Great. This is working. The pair programming thing. Cool. So we've got Hello World test passing, which means we should be able to run it. Create and run unit tests. Write the application DNA. Oh, this is for if you're actually making an app. But I think I know the command to. I think HCD, Hello World should run it. Maybe not. We'll look at the command line tools. There's hcdev, hcadmin, hcd, which is the one I think we need. Developing and testing. Okay, so hcdev web. Here we go. This is the command we probably want, if it works. Let's see, hcdev web. Let's do, I think usually it's 3141. There it goes. It's copying the DNA to the right folder, and now it's serving. Yeah. And for anyone who this isn't clear to, Holochain is a local program, and so it's running here in the terminal, or whatever, as a daemon that has this display in the terminal, and then it's synchronizing in the background with the Gossip protocol. So if we go to localhost, my computer 3141, here's Hello World. 50 minutes. And we got Hello World working. So enter the text of the entry. This will be stored in Holochain, and the hash key for the new entry will be shown in the hash text box below. All right, so let's say we'll do the amateur hat club number 1, 2, 9, 26, 2018. Okay, so there's the hash. And if I press the read button, this retrieves it from my local source chain. If any of you have been following along and want to boot up Hello World, we can trade hash codes, and you'll be able to actually pull in the entry that I just submitted. So let me post this hash. Does anyone have Hello World set up? Cool. It's a good little demo app, actually. So there's the hash. You should be able to put it in hash. Will someone send me one? I wanna try.
Hey, Anders, it's Rob. I'm still installing Go stuff, so I'm a few steps behind. But
No problem. Yeah, Jacob just sent me a hash. So you guys can see, I just got this hash from Jacob. It's different from my hash. And if I press read, I think it needs to sync. So it may take maybe up to a minute, but if I keep clicking this, I think it will read in the entry at some point, in theory. We can also make sure we're running the same version of the software, the exact same version. Here's my DNA hash. Was that just my hash? No. Wonder why all these hashes are starting with QM. Anyway, here's my application hash. Oops, I just killed it. Yeah. No, 3. 3 hashes. I'll start with capital Q, lowercase m. It's very strange. Possibly, yeah. Anyway.
Oh, maybe it's because it includes some of the hashes. Maybe the first half of the hash is like a hash of the app DNA, so it has to be.
Oh, I see. Yeah, the first half of the hash might be the app DNA. That is possible. Yeah, that's Will over there. Okay, so here's my application DNA. Jacob, do you want to? Yeah, it's still not loading your message. Do you want to check your the hash that was output when you launched Hello World on this line, serving Holochain with DNA hash, and compare the hash I sent?
And sorry, once more, please.
Okay, so this hash that I just posted in the chat, go to your terminal where you launched Hello World, and this line here where it says serving Holochain with DNA hash, compare the hash that you have to the hash I just posted.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Where did you post it? Sorry. In
the Zoom chat.
Oh yeah. Okay. YouTube. Well, it's different. Yeah, I will copy my hash there. Yeah, it's different.
Okay, that's why we're not getting the message across then. Every version of every. Okay, hi Julio, thanks for coming. Every version of every Holochain application runs on its own VPN effectively. They're like a separate network basically.
Mm-hmm.
So unless we have exactly the same application version, because we haven't built the translation plugins yet, unless we have exactly the same version, it's not possible to exchange Holochain entries.
Yeah,
so,
okay. So I can try cloning the exact one that you have, and maybe then it can work.
Yeah, try using the same command that Julio posted up above, hcdev init clone example equals hello world. Yeah, I'll post it again. Yeah, so I would try deleting your existing directories and that command.
Yep.
And then the other ones that we just did. I think it was hcdev test and then hcdev web 3141 or whatever port you want.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to see, while you're working on that, I'm going to update the documentation that we were just using so that it works. Oh, I see. This is for making it empty. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I've cloned the same one, and I have built it, but it's still the same hash actually.
Which is still different from my hash?
Yeah. Yeah.
Weird.
Interesting.
Okay, so if you use that command, it should have downloaded exactly the same version of Hello World.
Yeah, I'm thinking whether the fact that I'm on Windows, whether there might not be some changes during
Will might know actually. Will, do you know if Windows Holochain apps have a different DNA, or sorry, a different hash?
Not,
yeah, I hope not.
At this stage, we might. Possibly.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Will says that's possible, but he doesn't know. But yeah, no, they're not supposed to have different hashes. Yeah. Did you update your version of Holochain core to the most recent version, Jacob?
Actually, I didn't, because I have the Windows version, and so I wasn't doing the building and making stuff. But I think that might be part of it.
That might be the reason. Do you want to spend more time on this now, or should we just move on to the playing with the code?
I have a feeling that it might be quite a rabbit hole trying to build it and make it on Windows. So maybe let's stay with the code a little bit more. And
okay.
Then I'll try to play with this afterwards.
Okay, yeah. It seems like, I mean, in theory, I would think it's the app code that matters, and that they haven't changed the hashing functions very much from version to version of Holochain, but I'm not sure. Anyway, yeah, we'll spend more time on that sometime in the future. Yeah, so, and I'll update this documentation more later too. So let's get back to something kind of interesting. So we have, yeah, so anyway, so if we had been on exactly the same version of the same Holochain app, I would have been able to paste in his hash here and then read his message here, and the propagation would take anywhere between like 1 or 2 to 5, sometimes like up to 30 seconds. I've seen it take like up to a minute if it's kind of being glitchy, but I think normally it's just a few seconds.
Yeah, interesting. But by the way, where exactly is this? Because it's writing that it will be stored in Holochain. Is it storing it in my own chain, or is it sending it to the DHT, or what's exactly happening here?
The DHT is, I believe it's made out of source chains. I'm not sure there's a clear distinction between source chains and the DHT. Okay. So yes, if I were to, if I put another message and I submit it, it'll be added to my source chain, and that will be gossiped through the distributed hash table. Yeah, so that gossiping takes a couple of seconds to pass entries around.
Okay.
And right now, the way that we find each other, that our nodes find each other as peers in the network, is with a Bootstrap server, which is technically totally centralized. It's just a normal server. But that code is open source, so anyone could set up their own Bootstrap server, and eventually we won't have that anymore. We're going to have other ways to bootstrap into a network.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, we've seen what HoloWorld does. We have the code right here, and we're not right here because I closed it. Yeah, let me open this again. There we go. And okay, maybe I have like 4 Atom windows open. Oh yeah, okay. I haven't really used Atom before. It actually, okay. Anyway, okay, I'm gonna have to reshare this project again. Oh no, good. Okay. Is anyone else in Atom with me? Oh yeah, no, I am gonna have to share it again. This is not, it's not letting me share in Atom. We have to sign in, okay. Really? Okay, I'm going to paste a third Atom code. So anyone who got Atom installed can follow along in Atom. Okay, so let's play around with HoloWorld a little bit. Let's mess with it somehow. Or we could, now that we've got our feet wet with HoloWorld, we could look at a different app and maybe actually add a new feature or something. We have an hour, so we might be able to get something meaningful done on that. What do you guys think? What should we work on?
Maybe stay a little bit with the HoloWorld just to see what's the basic kind of.
Oh yeah, we didn't go through the code line by line really yet. Yeah, so let's look at the flow. So here's the page that we were seeing here. is this. And yeah, so enter the text of the entry. This will be stored. Then there's a label. When there's here's a text box. And you can see the text, its ID is hello world entry. So in HTML, this is how, in JavaScript, this is how you'll refer to this particular text box to get its value. And then here's the submit button. Here's a second form for reading from the chain. There's a label. Here's a text box called hash. There's a text box called entry content, which is where it displays out. Here, that's these two boxes. And then here's the button, the read button. And now here's the JavaScript. This is what makes the interface work and call Holochain functions. Okay, so here's the beginning of the JavaScript. This line and by the way, how's the pace that I'm going at and that kind of thing? Can you hear me okay? Am I going too fast or too slow?
I think it's good for me.
It's good? Okay. Okay, so let's look at this line by line. So who here is like totally unfamiliar with JavaScript and web programming? Like, is anyone, or conversely, who's comfortable with it? Is this line totally foreign to anyone?
I think I'm kind of okay.
Okay. Okay. It sounds like everyone is at least kind of familiar with this. So document get element by ID, submit entry. So, excuse me. So there's submit entry. So we're going to get this element, and then we're going to add an event listener for a click. Okay. So this script runs when the page is loaded. It adds a click listener, and it attaches that to a function. Oh, this function right here. That's literally in line. So it attaches this function here to when you click on submit entry. And that function, when you click on this submit button right here, what it will do is right here. So first it says event.prevent default. I have no idea what, oh, that probably prevents the default event from firing. Like when you click a submit button, there's actually a hard-coded default submit event in HTML. That might be what that does. Then hello world entry create. So okay, so this function is calling our function hello world entry create, which is most likely in this file here, helloworld.js, because we've included it as a script at the beginning of this document. So let's go. So anyway, so it calls this function, and it sends to it the text that we entered in of the new entry. And then it also sends it a function. And that function sets the hash to the hash, which is sent to that function. So this is a callback function. So when hello world entry create finishes, it looks like it's going to send a hash to the callback function here. And then that hash is going to get stuck in document.getElementsById hash.value, okay. which is what updates this right here. When you say submit, it spits out the hash right there. Cool. So that's that function. This function is almost the same. It's just reading instead of writing. So it calls the hello world entry read instead of hello world entry create. Excuse me. And it sends it the hash. And the callback function that it gets is it receives a task, a variable named task, which then it puts that in entry content. I don't know why it's named task, but it doesn't matter. It's just a name, so it'll get the content of task and put it in this box here. Cool. So we basically comprehend this file completely. If you were following along, or if you're probably, some of you might be going faster because you're maybe better JavaScript programmers than me. So now if we go to helloworld.js, which is also in the UI folder because it's the client-side application logic, then here's our two functions. And so what this does, this is the back end of the front end. The index.html is like the front end of the front end. This is the back end of the front end, and the back end of the front end connects to the front end of the back end, which is Holochain API. So this function gets called when you click this button, submit. There we go. And let's go through this line by line. So task callback. Okay, so it gets these two variables, and then it sets up an HTTP request object, which can be used to make JSON calls or asynchronous calls. Here's the URL that we're going to send the. This is how you if you do an HTTP request to. I presume it's this localhost 3141 / like we can probably actually simulate this. If we copy this URL, oops, damn, it just breaks my Dvorak. Okay, so if we copy this, we can actually call the function manually from the web browser, I think. Let's try it. Yeah, see? Yeah. So it spat out an error because we didn't send it any variables. Excuse me. Cool. This line sets the HTTP request object to use post instead of get, and gives it the URL and sets some other variable. This sets the basic content type to JSON. So okay, so yeah, we can trigger this function, but we can't actually call it properly unless we use some like fancy JSON interface to send structured JSON content as a post. But when you type in a URL to the URL in your web browser, that sends a GET request. So it's not going to be interpreted correctly by the backend, the Holochain DNA proper.
How does this function which we are accessing through the like fn hello world anti create, is it how did it come to be, or where is it I'm trying to figure out where this got maybe created, or how does it happen that there is this kind of entry point, or how to say it?
Okay, well so this is not actually a special function. This is not part of the Holochain app itself. This is part of the web app which accesses the Holochain app, which happens to be served by Holochain because we built in a web browser, a web server. So if we look at index.html, this file here is literally just like we were going over is this page right here. When we click the submit button here, it triggers this click listener, which then prevents the default click event and then calls Hello World create entry.
I do understand this, but I'm curious about how does the address, I don't know if it's REST API or what is it, but how does it get exposed so it's accessible through the URL, through the address?
Oh, I see. I think I see what you're saying. So this localhost 3141, this sends what's listening on my local port 3141 is Holochain core. And it knows that I've booted up port 3141 to link with the Hello World app. So it's going to send traffic from localhost 3141 to the Hello World app through Holochain.
Yeah. So when you write /fn/ when you put it there manually, so it's the Holochain core listening for this. So how does it know what to listen? How does this?
Oh, I see. This is a standard. So this is a standard that they established where if you add /function, this allows you to start calling your Holochain Zome validation functions. So it's function, and then here's the name of the app, and then here's the name of the function. So it's a very simple API format is what this is.
And where actually where does it get it from? That there is Hello World entry create. So I just don't know what to do. It's the Zome, or how does this get kind of these listeners, or how does it get?
Good question. Yeah, good question. Yeah, because it's called Hello World entry create here, and then also called where is it? There we go. Oh, it's also called Hello World entry create here. So they've named these two totally different functions the same thing, which is actually super confusing and not very good for a demo app. maybe we should change this and commit it actually.
Yeah, maybe I'm confused about that. Yeah, because I was kind of trying to figure out how does this kind of listener get established. But I'm not sure whether to call it a listener. Maybe it's an interface. But if I want to call some kind of function, then the server needs to know, like, needs to know what to do with the calls. So I'm kind of trying to figure out where does it establish. So is it in the Zome or, for example,
which is where we are right now. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I run that Holochain or that hcdev web 3141 in the Holochain directory, or sorry, Hello World directory, it reads the Zome file, and then it launches Holochain, and Holochain is listening for this function and this function and this function and this function.
Okay, so I should be able to call those directly, right?
Yeah, let's try it. So let's try validate commit. But did it just, I think it just screwed up my, oh yeah. I have Dvorak with QWERTY when I press control on my keyboard, so it's Atom is the one app that messes it up. Okay, so yeah, I should be able to replace this here, and it should spit out some unknown exposed function. So maybe not. Maybe this is some type a more internal function, but this one should work. Yeah, this one works. I mean, it fails because we're using get instead of post, but it found it. Genesis. Okay, so see, this function says called only when your source chain is generated. So this function might not be exposed through the web interface by default. And these are validation functions for every DHT entry change. So these might not be exposed either because these might be run automatically every time one of your other functions changes anything, basically. Yeah, but these two at least are exposed. Yeah, and it is confusing that they used the same name. Yeah, so these are client-side JavaScript functions. These ones here.
Oh yeah, actually, I see
that use an HTTP post to call the quote server side, but it's in the Holochain's API.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the DNA now. I'm looking at the zones, and actually the exposed functions is those two. Yeah.
Yep. There you go. That's it. Yeah. So this is the definition that shows the schema for doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Cool.
Cool.
So
you understand?
If I add okay. Cool. So if I add anything here, then I will be able to call it from the interface. Yeah. Okay. I will experiment with this after.
Cool. Great. What was I going to do next? Oh yeah, I was just still walking through. So yeah, so anyway, this function, if you are familiar with JavaScript, is probably pretty straightforward actually. It's just doing an HTTP post request. And that's what all this legwork is for, is setting up that request. I mean, I wish this was doable in one line, but on ready state change equals function. So this is setting up probably a callback function because JavaScript is known for its nested callbacks. So if xhr.readystate equals 4, and status is 200. So if the call to Holochain succeeded and it gets a 200 success code and whatever 4 means, then it calls a callback. So this is a nested callback. And it calls json.parse the response text. So okay, so this doesn't seem like, this seems like possibly a security vulnerability. I'm no expert, but if it's going to parse the response from the server and use that to get the name of the callback function, I don't know why that's designed that way. That seems weird. Maybe I'm misunderstanding this.
Actually, I think it's calling because you have to call back as an argument.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
So maybe it's just calling the function.
Oh, you're right.
Whichever you are passing before.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Thank you. Yeah, it's calling this function.
Yeah.
Yeah, or in the lower function, this one. Yeah, okay, cool. So then it calls the callback, and it sends the callback function the response text. So yeah, that's not a security issue at all. It's just sending the this would be the hash code. And that's probably what this expects, right? Hash. Yeah. So it gets the hash back, and it sends it to the callback function, which is not named but is defined right here. And then let's see, it takes the, I'm going to cough. Okay, then it makes a variable data, and it takes the JSON code and turns it into a pretty text with timestamp. Yeah, so what this does, oh, and then it sends the data. Okay, so this packages the string, the content that I wrote here. Oh wow, there's some food that looks really good. And then it adds a timestamp so that that'll be recorded in the Holochain entry. Even though it's not displayed on this page, it'll be saved with a timestamp, presumably. And we can actually go look at that in a second. Anyway, I won't go through the second function because it's almost the same. It just sets up another post request to do the read, to call the read function. So it's really kind of a shame. I think we'll probably figure out ways to have these JavaScript functions be written automatically or be, somehow generated, because this is basically boilerplate that just calls a Holochain function and then returns the data. So this is just glue that holds the front end and the back end together. Yeah. So now let's look at the Holochain app itself. And so we'll see this, it's sending a task and a timestamp in a combined string. Okay, so yeah, the timestamp doesn't show up there. So let's look at the, here. Okay. All right, so this function is super simple. The entry is the text, so it just takes the text that I entered in, and a timestamp will be appended to that. So there's a string that contains both my text and the timestamp, and that's the entry. And then this function, all it does is call commit, which is a built-in function. It's not here. See, it's not defined in this file. This is a Holochain core API function. And then you give it a type. This is the type. So we're defining our type here, hello world entry. Actually, no, sorry, we're not defining it here. We're telling it we're using this type, and then the type is defined here. So it's saying that the schema for our entry will be this schema. And this schema has properties, content, string, oh, and a timestamp. So the timestamp will actually not be combined somehow. Not clear. This is not clear to me, actually. Our entry here in the glue code, stringify. Oh, you know what this does? It makes it into a JSON string. So this actually, it does not just append the two strings together. It puts them into a structured JSON format. And then that format is also the native, one of, I think one of the native formats of Holochain entries. So the actual structured JSON gets sent to commit. And as long as it matches the Holochain schema, and it also matches our validate commit, I think validate commit gets automatically called every time we do a commit. so the validation aspect of committing is exposed, and we have to fill this in, or it will not compile. I don't think. Yeah. So anyway, so when we call commit here, it's going to use this type, and at some point during this commit function being called, our validate commit function will be called by commit.
So where is the commit function defined? I can't find her.
In Holochain core, it's not one of our functions here. It's not app specific.
Oh yeah.
It's like kind of like very, very simple. It's too simple. That's why it's a little confusing maybe, is because
yeah, but because if it's in the Holochain core, so how am I calling it actually from JavaScript? No. No, I'm a bit confused now because return commit, we are calling it a commit, but I'm not sure.
Well, commit is a Holochain core function, and this Holo world, the code that we're in right now, this is the actual Holochain app code. So this is compiled and runs as part of the Holochain executable.
Okay, so this is not like a clear JavaScript. This is something, or no? It is JavaScript, but it is interfacing with the Holochain core somehow.
Yes. Yeah, you can write Holochain app code in Lisp or JavaScript, and this is Holochain app code.
Okay.
It's not the web UI code that's being served.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Okay. Okay. So anyway, so when we commit, we're telling it it's going to take this entry type, and then we send it the entry, which is structured JSON. And then it commit will call our validate commit function at some point and gives us the entry name, the entry, presumably the same structured JSON, the entry header, some kind of package, and some kind of sources. I don't know what those are. And then whoever wrote this Holo World demo app filled this in with a switch on entry name. There's only one defined entry type that that is in the Holo World demo. If we had multiple entry types, like in Clutter, for example, there are probably both user entry types and message entry types. So we would have different cases for each of those. But right here, we only have one. And right now, there's I've heard that the Holochain programmers and the demo apps they're making have just been putting return true on all the validation functions, which is very, very bad. but it's temporary. You know, when people actually build these apps out, they'll whatever special conditions you need, you'll add to the validation to guarantee that every entry is valid according to the rules of that game or that situation. But here, I mean, we don't have any rules. Maybe we could check like the length of the entry to make sure that it's not too long, but I don't think that that's necessary either. So it just returns true. And if it's an unknown entry type, then it returns false. So all it has to be is an entry type that matches this structure. So there's two ways that this validate commit function could fail. One is if somehow an entry got committed that didn't have this string right here. So that's basically impossible because it's hard-coded right here. And two, if the front end sent data that was not well-structured JSON that matched this schema. So if the front end somehow screwed up and sent the wrong data, then it would also, I think that part of the validation happens automatically. So it's not in our function. It would also fail if it sent poorly structured data. And that's actually, those are the errors we were getting when we were calling these functions manually with clip. So invalid character, you looking for being invalid. So this is some error related to it doesn't match the schema. Yeah.
And so the validate commit is actually called from the Holochain core after receiving the commit request?
Yep, I'm pretty sure about that. Otherwise, I don't see where it would be called. I'm pretty sure that works. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we don't need to go through these. I'll just go very quickly. Validate put is the same idea. Validate mod. I don't know what this is. I don't think this this seems like it's not in use because there's no sample entry defined anywhere. We might be able to just remove this code, but I don't know for sure. There's validate put package, mod package. I don't know what these are because I don't know what put, mod, or delete is, but I do know all these functions need to be defined if you're building a Holochain app, because they're all basic validation functions that your app, every Holochain app needs to support these basic types of validation for their particular
put, mod, del, all of those.
Sorry?
All of those, right? Put, mod,
Yes.
del, package. Yeah, okay.
I'm pretty sure that all of them are required to be defined in your Holochain app code file. Yeah, at least these three. Probably also these are required.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so I think we've gone through pretty much all of the code in this entire example. There's this, the DNA. So this is the like the top level document that defines the Holochain app and its schema. So here's some UUID, which is a unique hash identifier. There's the name, properties, there's a description, here's the language, hopefully the default language, properties, schema. Let's see what this is. I don't know what this is. It's probably properties of the app, kind of like a description that can be structured, maybe for the App Store. That's my guess. This is clever. Based on, excuse me. Based on is kind of interesting because I think this might be planned to be used by the migration and backposting protocols. So we're going to build into Holochain core functionality that allows you to migrate, because remember, each version of each app is its own separate network, which is actually really dysfunctional, as you saw. It's really great because everything is hyper local and privatized to just peer-to-peer relations. But for compatibility and for upgrading the version of your app and still being able to communicate with all of the people who have not yet updated their app version, we need to have migration protocols that allow people to upgrade, and then also backposting protocols that allow people to post back to previous versions of the app in the older format in some cases. So I'm guessing that's what based on is for. Zomes, and then here's the definition of, well, this is confusing because ribosome is different from zome, but it's listed under zomes. So I don't know what that is, but here we got the name, description, code file, and this is the main code file is being referenced here. So this is an important line right here. And then here's a list of all the types of entries that this app can make. I think, yeah, and in this case it's just one. So here's it's really nice because we can actually change out the data format if we don't want to use JSON. And there's the name of the entry. The schema, it looks like we could define the schema in line right here, but instead in this case they've defined it using that file that we've seen, the schema defined here. And then it's public. I don't know if there's any private functionality yet, but probably this is for future addition of more private sharing. Yeah, this just defines which language you're using. We could also do, I think, Lisp, or I don't know how you'd spell it, because it's a certain dialect of Lisp. And then here are the two functions, bridge functions, bridge 2. Oh, I'm excited about bridge functions. That's hopefully related to the migration stuff as well. And here's which version of Holochain it requires. Here's how the DHT is configured. And then here's the progenitor. I think that maybe is that might be the block of the first or second entry in each person's source chain. Might be what the progenitor is about. Having an ID either for the app or for the person. I'm not totally clear on that. Cool, yeah, so in general, the structure of the Holochain app, this is like the top level document, and then it refers to all these other documents. This one, this one, and I think this one too are all referenced in here. Oops.
I think I still need to check up what is the difference between zomes and ribosome, because I see ribosome here.
Oh, I can tell you that the ribosome is the thing that connects Holochain core to different languages. So right now we have 2 ribosomes, one for Lisp and one for JavaScript. So there are 2 languages you can use. Yeah, and the zomes are, I think the zome refers to this, the file that contains the application logic, the actual validation functions. So yeah, so you can see in looking at this, it's kind of what I think is really cool about Holochain is how it's kind of like cold fusion, where these are mere validation functions. Like none of the apps really do anything. None of the Holochain apps. I mean, you can make them do whatever you want in the validation function, but all they are doing ultimately is just saying yes or no. This is valid or not valid, and all the Holochain nodes gossip, so everyone's checking each other's entries to make sure that they're valid by the rules of the game that they say that they're playing. So yeah, so like making a Holochain app is actually conceptually quite simple, even if it's flat and sideways from how we normally design programs. Cool, I think we understand this entire project now, more or less. This looks like my name. This is some type
What's
of
the agent? What is the agent?
I don't know. I think it's my username that looks like it got automatically chosen.
And how is it?
Excuse me. You can set this yourself if you call a different initialization command, I think, or maybe add another argument. This is, and I think it's often recommended to set it to your email address. So this is not that important. This is like this is your local name, but it's not related to like a universal ID or anything like that. So in the long run, people won't really use this. But for now, it's how we identify local source chains identities. Cool. Yeah, I don't know what this JSON config file either is, but oh, this is tests. No. Pure mode. Bootstrap. Oh yeah, so yeah, this is just some configuration, it looks like. So Bootstrap server, here's some different templates for logging different errors. Okay, so this is probably defining the colors that get spat out in this thing. Yeah, so we've got some, it's all green. So which one's green? Test passed. Yeah. So yeah, this is probably what's setting the green color here. And likely if we change this and rebooted it, actually we can just do that. Let's try it. Let's try cyan. Okay, so now if I close this and reboot it, I think it will just start spitting out cyan, maybe? Maybe not. There's no other green. Okay, well anyway, I don't know what this file does. But it looks like it sets the formatting of error output somewhere. Maybe possibly here, and I'm just not doing it right. And then here's my private key if you want to pretend to be me. Okay. Okay, we have about 20 minutes in the scheduled time. I think so far this has gone pretty well because even though I'm sick and even though we don't have all the Atom stuff set up, and what I really want to do with these are have everyone coding. I think to get us started, I think this has been a really good exercise to just walk through a project. Yeah,
that's cleared up some things for me. Thanks.
Definitely. Yeah, me too. Cool. So should we end early, or should we maybe go through something else for a few more minutes?
Yeah, I will probably need to run in a few minutes anyway. So yeah, so I think maybe what is the difference between when you say HCDev init and when you say HCDev web?
Yeah. Oh, those are totally different commands. HCDev init is, it initializes the Holochain app, so it takes, there's Holochain core which has been compiled, and then you have your Git folder that you downloaded from Git of a specific app, and you run init. This code is instantiated, and I think it's copied to that invisible Holochain directory, and it chooses your agent name here, or you could set it maybe, and then it also generates your private key, and it may add the first one or two Holochain entries on your source chain. The first entry, I think, defines the app, and the second entry defines your identity on this particular app. So it initializes the app. It initializes your source chain.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So in theory, you could call init multiple times with different folders and have multiple versions of the same Holochain app running.
Okay.
Or at least,
Yeah.
with different identities, different private keys. Whereas the web command HCDev web tells it to launch an instance to actually run the app and serve its GUI. Yeah, on the local host web server. Cool. Oh, there's a question from Robert from now. At what step did you figure out how to do things right that was wrong? Oh yeah. Yeah, I wanted to fix that. Let's this is good practice. Let's fix the documentation. It was right here, and excuse me, the command, the correct command, he said it was, oh, here it is, HCDev init. There. Yeah, so this, anyway, so see, this tutorial is about if you want to create Holo World from scratch. I think we should actually change it so it says, yeah, so that it's saying how to download the existing Holo World app. There. Here, I'll put it in different steps down below. Huh, didn't work. Okay, so change back to normal formatting. Here we go. Oh, it just turned all ugly.
Okay, so in the documentation, it was teaching you how to create an app of your own called Holo World, but we kind of cloned the example that's already out there. So
exactly. Yeah. So I'm just gonna add it as a note here, and then at some point, I'm guessing someone will fork this document and make, how to clone Holo World and test Holo World and look at the code like we just did, versus how to create a blank app. Yeah. I don't know why it's making. This is awful. Like this, it's not letting me just format the text the way I want. Anyway, there. We'll just do a little hacky edit for now. Okay. Cool. This is great. So we looked through Holo World, the demo application. We comprehended like 90% of all of these files. and we just updated the documentation with something we learned during this call. Cool. Does anyone have any questions or anything else they want to bring up before we go?
Not me, but thanks for kind of steering us through this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe we can take turns or set up Adam or something. So I don't want to lead all of these because it's not that interactive. I want it to be more interactive and also be able to sit back a little bit.
Great. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
For leading. Maybe one question is, would Connor be joining at some moment? Because I would like to ask him a few questions about the coin toss. So maybe if it was interesting for you, we could look at the coin toss at some point.
Sure. Yeah, we could look at coin toss next time maybe. That's going to be a pretty simple app as well. I think you showed up after I said Connor sent a message. He couldn't make it today.
Oh, okay.
Some kind of crisis. So no, he won't be showing up.
Yeah, but no, sometime will he be showing at some of the hackers meetings?
Yeah. Maybe not in the next 2 weeks because he just got a 2-week teaching job. So he'll be pretty busy with that. But probably after 2 weeks, he'll probably start showing up.
Okay, great. Okay.
Cool. And are you guys coming to the Glassbead game thing later? I'm gonna stop the recording.